Hi guys and welcome to a Sultai Kodama Silias deck tech video with the man and only Snuske, who's been brewing and developing this deck. Hi there and welcome.
Hello, thanks.
So where have you been playing this deck?
Pretty much exclusively on the cEDH Nexus, where I do most of my games. Played a few games on your stream with it, and tried a few on the Founders Club, and a little, that's about it actually. Yeah, mostly cEDH Nexus.
And how has this deck been kind of performing so far for you, here and there in the meta of and different metas, as you've been playing at different places?
It's gone through quite a few iterations since it started out, but the one iteration that lasted the longest, I think I would say a solid 25% win rate. Like it wins the games it should win. When Commander Legends came out and everyone was playing Roger Silas and the meta was very, very turbo NOS heavy, this deck was struggling in pods with 3 turbo decks for sure.
So where does it perform better?
It performs really well in a balanced pod, and it performs pretty well under most Stax pieces as well. It can be hard to Stax out Kodama.
So why Kodama of the East tree? It's a really expensive green creature. What's his good things?
Well, that's probably gonna have to be a shout out to Haya from Nexus, because he started the whole Kodama craze, at least in my opinion, with the original.
He did that with
Kodama Timna,
yeah.
With Hulk and Razaketh, and just abusing the Kodama triggers a lot. And when I saw the deck, I pretty much fell in love with Kodama, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, since it's a trigger and it's off of any permanent, not just the same type, if we add Thoracle and Consultation to the deck somehow, which I later found out is only possible through Silas, we can do a lot of weird and interesting stuff.
So this is one of your main combos, basically?
That is the main win con, yeah.
Alright.
And then the ability to be able to do that at instant speed was really interesting to me about the deck.
Can you explain how you're doing that?
Well, with the release of Commander Legends, we didn't only get Kodama, we also got Hull Breacher and Op Agent, which were auto-includes for the longest time, and it still is auto-includes in a lot of decks that have those colors. The big deal about that is that they have flash. So you're able to set yourself up to a point where if you don't feel comfortable going for the win, if you don't feel like you have enough protection, you can set yourself up to both have the protection needed or the interaction needed to stop other players, but also be able to win over top of them. If you have Kodama out and you sit there with Thassa's Oracle Tainted Pact in hand, which is really hard for a lot of players to just keep that in hand and not just slam it.
That's actually a good skill to have. Like hold back and wait for the timing window. It's good that you mentioned it.
And then if you then have one of those flash cards in your hand, which I think there are like 5 in the deck now, you have the ability to win on top of someone else's win when you feel like people have tapped themselves out enough to stop a Pier or an Adnos or another Thassa's Oracle win. And you're able to do that at instant speed.
That is honestly really good at capability. So what is Silias doing in this deck besides giving you access to black and blue for your main win con? Is there anything special trick with him?
That's it.
Oh,
pretty
poor
much.
Guy.
There's a piece in the primer that just says mulligans and the garbage that is Silas Renn. Sadly, he is the only Dimir partner and the only way to make this work. There are a few people I've talked to who are starting to work a bit more with Silas. I don't personally like the direction they're going, like adding more value pieces like Urza's Bauble or similar artifacts to value your Silas Renn. There is a recent addition to the deck that might matter for Silas Renn, and Citadel was added to the deck recently.
Yeah, that is one of your win cons, right? This one.
Yes, it's something I'm testing right now. I took out Adnos for Bolas Citadel because Adnos felt very clunky most of the time when playing the deck. It didn't feel great. It started to get into a meta in the Nexus at least, where a lot of people are trying out new stuff. And because I've played over there enough, they know that I use my life total, especially both for Necropotence and for Adnos. So I got attacked enough that the Adnos, when I got to it, didn't matter anymore. because it's not a turbo NOS deck. It is a mid-range deck still.
But doesn't Citadel struggle with the same problem?
It does kind of, but just having the selection or having the ability to just be able to cast some cards off the top is usually enough. That is at least the plan. I haven't been able to test it out enough because I've only resolved it, I think, 2 or 3 times so far. And the game that we played on your stream recently is the first time that it was used to its full potential.
That's true. You did it at a really low amount of life, and it actually got there. And I don't think an Adnos would even have been considered put on the stack with that life totally. I think you went off something like 5 life.
Yeah, 5 or 6 life. I ended up winning on my final turn, and ended up getting there with the final life.
Yeah, that's a big difference. What about this card in that case, which is better at performing at a really low life total? It's close to the same mana costs, 1 more, 7 instead of 6.
I haven't actually tested Pier in a long time. It was tested in a very old iteration of the deck, but the deck just ended up working. So Pier just never came back. So I don't really have a good answer for why Pier isn't played in the deck actually.
Oh,
but you could definitely play it for sure.
How about this in that case? You do play Silias, do play Bolas Citadel, and Silas Renn is actually interacting in a good way with a big building. You have Transmute Artifact and other various things like this.
Transmute Artifact has been in my mind for sure, of course. It makes perfect sense. The reason I haven't done it yet is because I wanted to test it as pure as possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I could, what would happen if I just put Citadel in the deck without any support. How easy would it be to resolve? How hard would it be to resolve? Like, would it ever resolve, or are people too scared of it in the deck? And then once I try to resolve it a few times or try to get there with it, see if Transmute Artifact should make it in the deck.
You're also playing a really strange card, which I believe is somewhat of your almost main or maybe second main win con. Could you explain this one? It's a little bit of a funky card.
I would love to shout out the guy who pointed this out to me, but I forget who it is.
Oh.
Someone pointed out Meloku to me, and I think it was because of people starting to brew the Kodama Sakashima version.
I have a feeling that there are casual players that just sitting and watching this saying, this is obvious. Why haven't cEDH player already figured this out? Because cEDH player forget about these cards.
because Meloku is not a card you look at ever.
No, exactly.
In cEDH.
Exactly. The reason why this works is that there's that text over there that says equal. So put a permanent card with equal or less, not only less. It can be equal.
If it only said less, the Kodama would be a really bad card.
Yeah. Because now if you create a token, you're allowed to put a land from your hand into play. And the other thing that is really important is that the cooldown is after return the land to your hand. So the returning of the land to your hand is part of the cost. So the land will be in your hand before the token resolves.
Exactly. And then you put the land down with the trigger that happens from Kodama from putting the 1/1 into play, and then you tap that, activate Meloku again, keep going for as long as you want.
So how good of a win con do you think this is, or how well has this thing performed so far?
It's really hard to protect. Not necessarily hard to protect, but it's in the current meta, people just need that 1 more turn to win most of the time. And this is a 2-turn win con most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you can cast Finale, which is not that easy. So a lot of the time it's going to be, I'm going to create 200,000 1/1s with flying, pass the turn, and just hope you get there. But that's why it is stated as well that it is a secondary win con. Exactly. It's a secondary win con.
So I'm guessing that your Bolas Citadel is eventually digging towards this win, so to say.
Yeah, or any of the cards that let you get the Oracle. There's Neoform and Elder's Evolution.
I have a question about a card. Why do you play Phyrexian Metamorph?
Because Silas Renn Neoforms into Metamorph. That is the simple answer. Having the clones is really important, and also because it's a clone, I have used this for copying Kodama before, but it's very, very rare that you actually do that. And that was to put Bolas' Citadel into play off the trigger, because whenever Metamorph enters, it enters with the CMC of what you're copying.
That's cute.
Yeah, so having it enter as a Kodama just makes this a 3 colorless and 1 Phyrexian mana Citadel.
What's the name of that card? Show and Tell?
Pretty much, yeah. This makes it a show and tell. You have Kodama out. What would I like to put into play that people would normally counter? Like if you want to put down a Necropotence and you think like, okay, they're definitely going to counter my Necropotence, but what if I just cast a Metamorph and have it copy, but let's just say like a Crom, You copy the Crom, and then you put Necropotence in with your Kodama trigger instead.
Ah, now I see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You're going for those little big CMCs things.
Yeah, go for whatever you need to put whatever you have in hand into play that would normally get countered, because you're at that point you're getting around the non-creature the non-creature counter spells.
And you don't need to announce what you're targeting, right? Because this will enter on resolve.
Yeah, it's a replacement effect. It's a replacement effect, so it enters as whatever you want it to be.
You can be really hidden what you're doing with this, and that's nice.
That's why in the primer it says you get to a point where people will be afraid of you casting a talisman.
You know, this primer sounds really funny.
Primer in the description. But I played against a guy who I knew he had a red blast in his hand, so I played it cool. You know, it's just I'm gonna cast the Talisman of Dominance. He's like, yeah, sure. Kodama trigger, put down Thassa's Oracle. Oh shit.
So what is this deck's other strengths besides dodging interaction and counter spells?
Well, it goes around Stax really well too. It doesn't play Rule of Laws itself, but it's able to grind out value under a Rule of Law a lot better than other decks, because you're basically casting 2 spells, as long as they're permanents, per turn. And you're also able to win when people don't expect it. Like the instant speed win, and also the end-step Necro win, which is my favorite way to win with Kodama.
Could you explain how you're doing that?
You cast Necropotence with Kodama out, and you have a fetch land without cracking it. You pay down to I usually say 7 or 8 life, and then you put everything in your hand, and then before you go to discard, you crack the fetch.
Oh, you get another land from that.
And then you put down another land from your hand, hopefully a fetch, and then you cycle through all the fetches in your hand, and hopefully, if you're lucky, and you have
Wait, I think I know what you're gonna do here.
There's a few. There are many options with the end-step Necro here.
So I wanna guess, with the 2 mana, are you going to find this? It got flash for 2 CPC. Is this the reason why you're playing this card? Because when I looked at your deck list, I was sitting here and being curious why you play Snapcaster Mage.
Snapcaster Mage is played for a very simple reason. It costs 2 mana and it has flash. That's it.
That's it.
Before your turn, you cast Demonic Consultation for Oracle if you want. Get Oracle in your hand, and you already have Snapcaster in hand, and you're just like, okay, pass turn. And then you wait for someone to go off, and then over top, you cast Snapcaster Mage, have the trigger to target the consult go off, and then have the Kodama trigger go off, put down Oracle, cast consult at any time.
But I'm guessing from the example we talked about, when you have your Necropotence, and you draw a bunch of cards, and you crack that fetch land, and you get another land from your hand, you have 2 mana, you cast Snapcaster Mage, so you can get Thassa's Oracle into play during your end step in instant speed.
For example, yes. But the main thing you do is that you keep doing that with the fetches for a lot longer than that.
Oh, yeah, you put a fetch land from your hand into play, from the fetch that you get.
Yeah, and then you crack that fetch, get a land that triggers Kodama again, put down a new fetch.
Put down a new fetch,
And as long as you have fetches and fetchable targets, you can keep going for a while.
And that was why you didn't go down to 3 life. You want to stay at 8 life when you Necro from this.
Yeah, because you're going to be fetching a lot. You might be getting in an Ancient Tomb at some point. But then you hope in those 30-ish cards, if you have a Crop Rot, or just if you can finish on an Emergence Zone, you just got 30 cards for 30 life, instead of an Adnos that cost you 30 life and only gave you 12.
That is so beautiful.
And then you're sitting there with a Necropotence for 30 at flash speed. Everything has flash, and you can just play on your end step.
And the cool thing here is that Kodama, if you cost a mana rock for 2, you get another mana rock for 2 for free.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really burst out that hand really fast.
If you play 2 mana for a Talisman and put down an Arcane Signet, one of them you just net even right there.
Right now it sounds like Necropotence is a must-have auto-include with Kodama. This feels like a really strong combo. I mean, you only need as many fetch lands as you have, Necro, and just explode.
And a life total, hopefully.
And a life total.
It becomes that kind of old Shimmer Sir feeling, where you get your Necro, you pay 30, you get all the cards in your hand, and you play a few lands, get the mana, and then you just cast either one of your flash creatures, put down Oracle, cast Consult with all the counter spells, and usually enough mana to get going.
This feels like a almost like a one card combo for you, or to phrase it correctly, this is a one card combo assembler.
Exactly.
I can really see why you want to play Phyrexian Metamorph. I guess I have a card I would really like to add in here that you can't play, but I guess you would be really happy if you could play it. Grand Abolisher on white. If you just cast that mana rock, that 2 CMC stupid Dimir Signet or Arcane Signet, and you just go pass, Kodama trigger, Grand Abolisher.
That would be amazing. I was talking to Sinestra when I was getting feedback for Kodama when it made it to the Brewer's Corner. He came up with a suggestion, which was Dosan the Falling Leaf.
Yeah.
That's a card I'm still thinking about. I'm still very skeptical.
Yeah, I guess you're only putting it into play once you're winning with a Kodama trigger. Grand Abolisher is just a lot stronger here.
It is for sure, because if you cast Dosan and someone just like removes your Kodama in response, you just sit there. Okay, I'm gonna pass.
You never really cast Dosan, right? You're doing this.
You want to be doing that, yeah. If I ever put Dosan in the deck, you just have to keep having the mindset of never cast Dosan, ever. So far, I'm leaving it out.
What about this deck's weakness? What should people think about when they are puzzling and building this deck?
Well, there's a few things. The main thing is, of course, that there's no card draw or real, like quote-unquote, card advantage in the command zone. Like, we don't have a Tymna, we don't have a Thrasios, we don't have a Crom, so the mulligan becomes a lot harder with this deck. It gets to a point where there's a few things you want to look for in the mulligan. Like, you're mostly looking for either card draw, a quick Kodama with payoff, or just a quick win. But you can always try to be proactive in this deck. It is possible for sure. But a lot of the time, if you're in Turbo Pod, you're not going to be there. You're not going to get there faster. But this deck can easily win on turn 2 with the right hand. That's not a problem. This deck punishes bad piloting so much more than other decks, because the smallest mistakes put you so far behind. Like, forgetting a Kodama trigger is one thing, but just messing up your sequencing when doing like a Kodama trigger in response to a Wish Claw, or accidentally resolving your Kodama trigger when you play a Spellseeker. Let's say you play a Spellseeker and then you're like, okay, Kodama trigger, put down Thassa's Oracle, Spellseeker on the stack. And then they're like, no, the Thassa's Oracle trigger is now above the Spellseeker search, so that has to resolve first and you won't be able to get your card.
So you have to layer the Spellseeker trigger above Kodama's trigger here.
But you shouldn't. This is not a deck where you should just go for it. A lot of people will have that kind of let's go for it and see what happens kind of mentality.
Yeah, Storm decks plays like that. Storm decks usually just play and ritual out, and just because that's kind of how you play Storm.
Yeah, this might seem like one, but it's not.
As we have been mentioning different versions of this deck, in the description below of the video we will also share a link to Hire's Kodama and Tymna decklist. But we will also share a Kodama with Sakashima the Thousand Faces making double Kodama from his in the description below of the video as well. What do you think about this card, Yawgmoth's Will?
I actually just had a conversation about this card in the deck today and ended up deciding that it's not good. Whenever I try to think about a card, I try to look back at the games that I remember playing. And in most of the games that I remember playing, my graveyard is insanely small. There's almost no cards in graveyard because the deck is becoming more and more permanent focused. And what is usually in your graveyard are a few tutors. So of course, Yawgmoth's Will can get you those tutors, but it's usually not going to get you the value that you want. A lot of the time, I feel like it's going to be a dead card.
So in the end, this could do the job if you just want to have a tutor, which is just one mana less.
Then Snapcaster just gets there. That's why we've been talking about something like Mnemonic Betrayal instead. There are a lot of breach decks out there. They like to fill up their graveyard. And the only way we have to fill our graveyard in the deck right now is Windfall, I think.
Is there a Kodama Discord for people to brew and talk Kodama with?
Yes, Hire made one back when Kodama came out, when he first brewed the Kodama Tymna. And I asked for a Sultai room for myself, and I've been sitting in there alone for a long time. Yeah, but we're all in that Discord. All the original creators of the decks are in there, and both me, Hisp, and Hire, and I think Igor, who created the Stax Absan version, we're all in there and like talking about the decks we made.
That's it for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something about how to brew Kodama. And thank you so much, Snuske, for coming out here and sharing your expertise and deck experience with us.
You are very welcome. I'm happy to do it, and I'm glad the deck is getting some street cred.
Yeah, see you around, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.